This video reviews standard English and vernacular use of nouns and pronouns. Let's start with standard English. Now, standard English adds s to nouns to make plural. For example, 1 table, 2 tables, 1 cat, 2 cats, etc. Noun plurals formed by adding s like this are called regular nouns. But standard English also contains some irregular nouns. Nouns that aren't regular because they don't make plurals with s. So instead, now some nouns use, they make a vowel change to create the plural. So for example, you have 1 tooth, 2 teeth, 1 mouse, 2 mice. And these are vowel changes to make the plural. And that's why we call them irregular nouns. Okay. Now, other irregular nouns actually have the same singular and plural forms. So in other words, there's no change. For example, 1 deer, 2 deer, 1 sheep, 10 sheep, fish, many fish. We can see, here's a good one. 1 series, 3 series. So some nouns don't make any changes between the singular and the plural forms. And again, that's why they're irregular. Now, some nouns actually change the word to make their plural. For example, 1 person, 2 people. And little by little, this one is starting to change because nowadays people also say persons, 2 persons. So also now you have nouns. English is a language where many of the words entered from other languages. Nouns in particular are quickly snatched up and moved to other languages. So now some words that come from foreign languages keep their plural forms. And so because they don't add s, they become irregular. For example, 1 cactus plant, many cacti. Or cherub, cherubim. Or phenomena, phenomenon. Phenomenon and many phenomena. Now, vernaculars also, we can imagine that vernaculars, just like standard English, they have, of course, they make distinctions between singulars and plurals, but they do it a little bit differently. So let's take a look at how vernaculars treat the plural. Now first, number 1, some vernaculars don't use plural, do not use plural nouns, that means adding s, with measurement, and some temporal nouns. When a number is used. Now, for example, many vernaculars say 20 mile. And mile is a measurement term for distance, but because there's a number in front of it, there's no S. Or 2 years ago. Same thing. Now, year is a temporal term, but because there's a number with it, there's no plural form. Or weights. For example, I'll take 4 pounds of bananas. 4 in front of pound, which is a measurement term, there's no S. Now also, it's interesting, some vernaculars, what they do is they actually regularize irregular nouns. So you can guess what something like this looks like. So for example, yesterday I saw 3 deers, or 2 firemen's came to my house. And it's interesting also what happens is sometimes a plural form can be used and marked as plural. So we have, for example, 1 child, 2 children, but a vernacular may take the plural form and regularize it by adding S. Children's, 3 children's. Or they could take the plural form men and add the S to regularize it and make 2 men's. It's kind of interesting. It's a different way to treat singular and plural distinctions in the vernacular. So now let's take a look. How else do vernaculars in standard English differ in their treatment of nouns? So standard English indicates genitive case. In genitive case, genitive is just the grammatical term for possessive. It's a linguistic name for possessive. And standard English has possessive adjectives. And possessive adjectives are like adjectives because they come before the noun. Like, for example, my pen, your pen, his pen, her pen, its pen. And then we have our pen, your pen, plural, your, and their pen. And these are all possessive adjectives. They're used together with a noun. You can't just say, I have my. It's got to be my something or someone because it's an adjective. It needs to be together in a phrase with a noun. Now, possession also is signaled in standard English with possessive pronouns. And pronouns are words that can stand alone. For example, this is my pen, this is mine. This is your pen, this is yours. This is his pen, this is his. This is her pen, this is hers. This is its pen, this is its. And then we have ours, yours, and theirs. These are possessive pronouns because they can be alone. Now, Standard English has a third way to signal possession, and that's by adding apostrophe S. For example, a boy's bike. We can see the bike belongs to the boy because it's apostrophe S. Now, if it happens to be two boys, and let's make it bikes, then I want to signal the possession, but the word already has an S for the plural. I just put an apostrophe after the S, two boys' bikes. If a word is singular, it doesn't matter because it could also finish with an S. So the class number. The class is number, and just apostrophe afterwards. Now, vernaculars, of course, do things a little bit differently. So let's take a look. Let's put down, this is the vernacular treatment for possession. And vernaculars sometimes omit the apostrophe S. For example, they say, the girl sweater is blue. Now, Standard English would say the girl's apostrophe S, but the vernacular doesn't include that. Or Mary car in the driveway. Standard English would say Mary's with apostrophe S car, but vernacular leaves off or omits the S. Now, something very interesting, and again, this is regularization taking place here, but the possessive pronoun, or mine, that's Standard English, right? This is mine. But the other possessive pronouns in English, for example, yours, his, hers, its, ours, yours, theirs, they all finish with S. So the vernacular adds S to mine to make mines. It's a regularization. So, for example, in the vernacular, we might say, this is yours, and that is mine's. Just to regularize it with all the other possessive pronouns. Now, vernaculars also, depending on where you are, some vernaculars add N to the end of possessive adjectives. Oh, I'm sorry, to the end of possessive pronouns. And you could have sentences like, this is yourn. This is hern. But that's what some vernaculars do to show possession. So let's continue. Now there's other kinds of pronouns in English, and Standard English uses a kind of pronoun called reflexive pronouns. And reflexive pronouns have a special use. You use a reflexive pronoun when the subject and the object are the same in one sentence. So, for example, he saw himself in the mirror. The subject is the same as the object. And because they're the same, we use a reflexive pronoun. The reflexive pronouns are myself, yourself, herself, himself, itself, let me write that again, itself. And now the plurals, our selves, your selves, itself. Oh, I'm sorry. And themselves. Now, that's the standard. Okay, so let's put down, this is the standard English variety of reflexive pronouns. But the vernaculars change that. And what they do is they regularize, so vernaculars regularize the reflexive pronouns, okay, by analogy with possessive pronouns. So I hope this isn't too confusing, but the vernaculars are going to make their reflexive pronouns, they're going to base them so they look more like the possessive pronouns. So for example, you continue with myself, because actually we see that my is a possessive pronoun. You have yourself. Okay, that doesn't change because your also is a possessive pronoun. And we can continue. Now, his becomes, instead of himself, becomes his self, because his is the possessive pronoun, or the possessive adjective. And then you have herself. That doesn't change. Still have that her. Of course, you have itself. That doesn't change. The plural, our selves, possessive adjective there. You have your selves. We're still using that same possessive adjective form, but now Standard English says themselves, but a vernacular says their selves, because their is the possessive adjective form, and it wants to regularize so that all of the reflexive pronouns have these possessive adjective forms inside them. So a possible example would be something like Mike cut hisself shaving this morning. Now, this is the vernacular. Standard English would say, Mike cut himself shaving this morning. So you can see there's a little bit of a difference. Okay, now, Standard English, or any form of English for that matter, has a group of subject pronouns. You can see that pronouns are divided into groups according to their functions in the language. So, for example, object pronouns are used in the object place. Reflexive pronouns are used in the object place of sentences that have subjects that are the same. Possessive pronouns are used at the beginning of noun phrases, like my pen. Possessive pronouns are used to replace an entire possessive noun phrase. So instead of my pen, you have mine. And subject pronouns are used in the subject place. So Standard English, I live in California, you live in California, he lives in California, she lives in California, it lives in California, we live in California, you live in California, they live in California. These are all subject pronouns. And we use them in sentences just like we use regular nouns as subjects. And we can combine them and compound them, for example. Let's say, you and she are friends. So we have two subject pronouns. They're put together, they're joined with and this is called a compound. So here we have a compound subject because it's made out of two or more pieces, in this case two subject pronouns. Now, vernaculars, they do something very interesting when they have a compound subject or a coordinated subject. Compound and coordinated talk about the same kind of a procedure. And coordinated subjects in a vernacular use the object pronouns. So the object pronouns, maybe we should do that first. Let's just go through that. So in Standard English, the object pronouns are me. For example, she saw me, or she saw you, or she saw him, she saw her, she saw it, she saw us, she saw you, and she saw them. These are the object pronouns, and they're very different than the subject pronouns. I, you, he, she, it, we, you, and they. They look different. These are the subject pronouns. But what vernaculars do, and this is kind of interesting, vernaculars, when they have a coordinated or compound subject, they actually use object pronouns, not subject pronouns. So in the vernacular, we might hear something like, me and her went out. Or we could hear something like Mary and him are friends. We're using in the vernacular object pronouns instead of subject pronouns in the subject place when the subject is coordinated, or what we say, a compound. There are two or more joined together. So that's one more difference in how vernaculars use nouns and pronouns. And of course, you already know that Standard English has only one form of you. You can be singular, like you are just one person, but you can also be used in a plural sense. You are a wonderful group of people. So you looks the same in the singular and plural form, but vernaculars actually have a plural form of you. And the form varies depending on where it's used. So maybe you've heard y'all. Y'all come back. Y'all are welcome. This plural form is used in the South. For example, Texas. You all. But vernacular has another plural form of you, and maybe you've heard yous. Yous have a good dinner. Nice to see yous. So yous can be a plural, and yous is used in vernaculars in the northern United States. And in a smaller portion of the United States, the southeastern portion, maybe from the south up until Pennsylvania, they say you-uns. Maybe somebody would greet your family, they'd say, you-uns are new. To this town. So there's three different plural forms of you depending on which vernacular you're looking at. Now, our last topic is going to be, and we've talked about this once before, but we talked about it when we talked about verb-subject agreement. We talked about existential there. And existential there means that Standard English uses this to talk about existence. So, for example, you might say, Standard English says, there is a painting on the wall. There are shoes near the door. But vernaculars don't use their existential there. Instead, the vernacular uses existential it. For example, it's a school on the corner. Or It's good shows on TV. And this is existential it is used in vernaculars. So this concludes our discussion of noun and pronouns in English, standard English, and in vernacular English. And I think you now have an excellent background in this area of language.